Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Business. We are discussing graphic design today with a graphic designer. We're going to be chatting to Dean, who has got a wealth of experience in the industry, both in terms of studying it and working in it. So, without further ado, here's Dean. Hello, everyone. We're talking business with a super mega special episode here today. We've got Dean. Hello, Dean. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Super. Thank you very much for joining me to chat here today. Now, disclaimer to everybody watching this. Okay, so me and Dean go way back, like way back, don't we? I'm talking 1990 year 7, way back, 11 years old, 10, 11 years old. Something like that.
Yeah. Don't forget our mums were best friends at school too.
And our moms were best friends at school too. So you can go way back to that. So we're really throwing it back here. And this is definitely on the list of things that 11-year-old Danny would never have thought he was going to do, probably because World Wide Web wasn't even invented then. So, we've been through quite a lot together, haven't we? Weddings, your best man at my wedding, and holidays and concerts and days out, and oh my gosh, everything. But sorry, we're not getting any juicy stories, any gossip tonight. We're talking business. So we're going to get stuck into it here. Dean, you are a graphic designer, correct?
Last time I checked, yes.
Marvelous. So you're still a graphic designer. That's good, because otherwise that really would change what we're talking about. So to try and put this into perspective then, so it's 1996. We're sitting in the same classroom, doing the same subjects in the same school with the same teachers. And then we sit in the same exam halls and we sit our exams. And then I go this way and you go this way. So what happened on kind of your journey? Because I ended up as a teacher. But considering we used to sit next to each other in class, where did your journey go?
My journey went to college, art college. So, I mean, pretty much when I was at school, I kind of knew by 14, 15, I wanted to be a graphic designer. Pretty much because drawing was the only thing I kind of really enjoyed and I was actually good at. And so, I kind of stumbled into it. Through that, I wanted to do design, as it was just generally known, and I went to what was then Northeast Worcestershire College, as it was called, in Redditch, which was in the town centre in Worcestershire. And I'd done a national diploma in graphic design there, which was just a general all-round. You've done illustration, you've done editorial, you've done photography, like traditional photography, not digital cameras. They didn't really exist then. Makes me feel really old. And then just a general thing there. And part of the reason why I chose that course was there was no exams, because the way I looked at it, the nature of the work of doing design, creativity, you kind of putting all your eggs in one basket on one day. It doesn't work like that. And I just thought it's better that you have to be graded consistently throughout the year. So you have to keep up the standard to get through. And I chose it, absolutely loved it. It was great. And then, we went to college, 96, started college?
Yeah, 96 to
96, that's when we left school, yeah. And then, and then that was for 2 years. And it was like the equivalent, it is actually the same equivalent as an A-level, just for clarity. And then, I then went to university. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the position where I could move away. So I chose to go to Wolverhampton. That was a pretty good course. There's some good all-round, well-grounded tutors there, and that was for 3 years. And there I was, like with a lot of things at university, you kind of sort of focus and hone in on the things you kind of want to do, and you kind of, sort of make your decisions there. And then, finished there in 2001. Unfortunately, given current world events, that the year before we had the .com boom, and that affected design in a lot of ways, because obviously you had the World Wide Web had kicked off in the mid-90s and everyone was having to build websites. So you had a lot of designers. That digital design, as it's now known, as it's generally known, it's a very general term in today's world, was totally new. I mean, it was totally, what is a website? What is this? How do we do this? So you had traditional graphic designers who were basically print-based, because that was the only medium, effectively. They had to learn all this new software coming out that was really raw, coarse, not easy to use, and create websites. And it was very difficult to take the kind of skills that you have as a traditional print designer, i.e. using typography and whatnot, limited colors that you could use due to the technology, and transition over and try and create, very, well-designed websites. And obviously the dot-com boom, if no one's not aware, it's basically so much money was thrown into it, it just popped. It was a big bubble. And suddenly lots of design firms that had got switched over to web, digital, suddenly found there was no clients. And it was like, oh my God, we've got no money, got no clients, let's go back into print. But you had other firms that had kind of filled out, and suddenly there was this kind of, a mess, really. And there was a lot of companies kind of collapsed. And then if you're a graduating designer in 2001, you're like, oh, it's the last year wasn't looking good. We're like, oh, this doesn't look great. And then obviously in 2001, you had September 11th, and that knocked the confidence out of everything. And design firms just stopped hiring juniors. And because they were like, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on in the economy and this, that, the other. And that had a knock-on effect throughout the years, because what you had this shortage of people with X amount of experience going through the years. So effectively in design, you have a junior designer, which is anywhere between sort of 0 to 3 years industry experience. You then have a midway designer, which is sort of 3 to 6 years, and then above that, so 6, 7 years more, you considered a kind of senior designer, generally speaking. And then after that, the ranks, so to speak, you then become a design director or a creative director. And then if you're in a really big design agency or design firm, you have an executive creative director, which is like a 5-star general, the equivalent of. And so what you had, because no one was hiring juniors, you had this kind of shortage going through the years. So, and what midweight designers you had who were junior designers, they could charge whatever they wanted because there was a shortage. So there was this kind of supply and demand issue, and that kind of haunted the design industry for a few years following. For me then, at that point, I was in a kind of position, I decided to go and do my master's in design, which I kind of planned to do years later, but part-time. I was kind of in a position where I was able to do that, and I went to what was then called the Surrey Institute of Art and Design. It's now called something else, University of the Creative Arts, I believe. I can't remember. And that was brilliant. Absolutely loved it. Done that for a year. And I finished that in 2003. That was something like that. And and then
you're a rare breed here, because not many people come on and talk, but they wanted to do something 14, 15, then they studied it, and then they actually did it. So the fact that you've actually done that it seems actually, from all the people I speak to anyway, really quite rare. So that's really nice to hear that you had that passion way back, in school terms in, say, year 9, and then here you are in 2021 still doing it. So 2004 you get your first job freelancing
designer. No, as a junior designer at a firm in Bedford, which I don't think is around anymore now. And the main client was Tesco's, but it was actually, they specialise in property.
Okay.
So sometimes you get design firms now specialise in a particular sector. So it could be cultural, so museums and this or the other. It could be very corporate based. But this one company I worked at focused on the property market, and their main client was Tesco's. Tesco's have its own little property developer, which makes a lot of sense, really, if you consider all the stores they build.
The locations they need,
I was there for about just under a year and a half, and then I moved on. And then I moved to London. By the way, that company was based in Bedford, which is just north of London.
Okay. And so you're starting to make that move south then, from the Midlands down to
London.
Pretty London's sharpish.
So by 2005, I'd moved to London. I ended up working for a firm called Rare Corporate Design, which sadly no longer exists. I had this kind of dilemma at the time, because there was another firm that was very well known called Addison, which is now being adapted into another bigger firm, and they were very well known, very well respected, and I had like 3 interviews there, and I couldn't decide between the 2 companies. One's a very big established firm, one's a very small, and it had pros and cons to each. And ultimately, in the end, it was an accountant at Addison decided, oh, we haven't got the budget in the end, and it really annoyed all the creative directors. But then it made my decision really easy.
Decisions made for you, yeah.
But years later, I went back to work there several times as a freelancer. Okay. So, and they all remember, the creative directors remembered me, and we got chatting. One of them was a Villa fan, so we constantly just chatted. I'm a Villa fan, by the way. And so it was at Rare, and then was at Rare for several years. Worked on lots of different clients, charities, big corporate. Just lots of different ones. Lots of different things. And then, unfortunately, the financial crash happened in like 2008, was it? And I lost my job. I got made redundant.
You spoke there briefly just about, you did lots of different things for lots of different types of businesses. Is that something that's really useful to do early on in your career, to try and get the experience of, well, I've designed for this type of business and then this type of business, and they're totally different, and my skills are now much bigger? Is that something you'd recommend to people looking to get into?
Yeah, even after doing university or whatever, you can still come out of university and go, I want to be a designer, but I really don't know what type of designer, because within design there's lots of different types of designers.
Yeah, of course.
It's kind of like saying, well, there's engineer, you're an engineer, but what kind of engineer? Are you a software engineer? Are you an electrical engineer? Are you a mechanical engineer? It's the same principles, but in lots of different forms. So it's the same with design, and you can have an idea. I mean, like I say, years ago it used to be simple. You were a print designer, and within that there's a slight variation. Now, due to technology, due to lots of different things, there's lots and lots of different types of designers in all different areas. Even now you hear a new type of job, it's like, what the hell is that? And I'm just like, what? Yeah. No, I don't know what that title means.
Exactly. Just when you think you've heard it all.
Designer type.
Exactly, yeah. And then you've got to retrain, and then you've got to learn these things again. So you've had, career path-wise then, so now we're at 2009, and the financial crash has happened, which affected every single industry across the globe. So you've had the impact of kind of 9/11. Now you've got the impact, the dot-com boom and bust, and now you've got the financial crash of 2009, and you've got all these things that every time you kind of get going on your career, like, oh no, here we go again. So what do you do after 2009? So 2009, 2010, now we're about 10 years from now.
So I'd worked full-time for several years at this point, about 5-6 years. I then switched to freelance. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And from there I ended up working in lots of places for a couple of years, like 2.5 years I freelanced, and it was great. Worked again, lots of different firms, lots of different clients, lots of different projects, real variety. And I think that, going back to the point you was asking earlier, that I think when you're in the young start of your career, don't just sort of feel like, this is what I'm going to do for the next 30-40 years of my career. Your career will zigzag, probably go around in a loop in parts, but it will zigzag and you'll bounce like that. And you just need to experiment and find out what you're good at, find out what you enjoy, find out what you're good at. And I think that's a principle that applies across everything in life. If you can find out what you're good at, find out what you enjoy, where those paths cross, that's a good starting point to go, maybe I should look into here.
Look into that. And that's interesting as well, what you've said there with kind of new graphic design kind of jobs coming along there, because we say a lot as a teacher, we talk a lot about that we have to train students to do jobs that don't exist yet. So if somebody had said to you in 1997 at college, right, we're going to look at app design today on mobile phones, well, that's not possible. But you were being taught skills that one day might have been used to do that, mightn't you? So that's really interesting that you've got like real world experience of that happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's the pace within the creative industries, which is design, falls under that big umbrella. It's incredible. It moves at blistering speeds, partly because of like styles. It reacts to businesses and consumer trends, business trends. Technology is a huge factor in it, and it's constantly evolving. And it will never stop evolving. And this is the thing, it's a very fast merry-go-round. And some people like going on that merry-go-round for quite a while, and then they're like, you know what, I've had enough. I want to get off, and they want to go off and do something else, and that's absolutely fine. You know, everyone's different, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And some people just thrive off it. They just love the fast-paced nature. And for others, it isn't. And again, it just comes back to the point: you just got to find out what's right for you, what works for you.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you for that.
It boils down to. There's no point doing something A, you don't like, and B, you struggle with. It's not going to be a great experience.
You're kind of ruining my last question here. I had that question saved for about like 15 minutes from now, but yeah, that's fine. No, it's great advice, and it's lovely to hear it from somebody like yourself, who is not me saying the same thing over and over again in front of the class. Oh, Danny's talking again. You know, it's coming from yourself, who's kind of been there and done it. So we're up to what, 2013, 14 now? You've done a few years freelancing.
Yeah, because I freelanced around about 2011, and I wanted to go back to full time. And I was looking around trying to find, I wanted to find an interesting opportunity. I was, something challenging, something, And I came across this one company. It was quite interesting. And I ended up being there, and it was, again, right in the centre of London. And I went back, I was there for about 3.5 years in total, up until about 2016. And again, that was a company that had, it's based in London, but all the clients were just basically African businesses based. And it was like so we had all these big clients. The main client was a big African bank. And again, trying to understand the kind of cultural relevancies and that there, it's, I'm coming at this from a Western Europe perspective and, British perspective. So there was like this kind of big learning curve in trying to understand that. And then working with other African clients that we had within the business. And again, it came, like I say, it came to 2016, and then I just felt that urge to sort of move on again, and I've been sort of freelancing since then. So that brings it up to about here. So that's 5 years. That's flown by.
Gosh, yeah. And what a journey that is as well. There's the stereotypical view that, you go to uni, you find a job you like, you stay in that, you work your way up the company, everything's fine. But you've stayed in the industry, the skills and the people you must have met along the way, and the skills you've developed, and the challenges you've kind of gone through, it's just amazing by trying all these different things there. So, I mean, graphic design, you're a graphic designer. Education funding to the arts has been cut a heck of a lot the last, quite a few years now, trying to think back to the day it started. But one of the arguments is that art is extremely important. It's part of our everyday lives. So how important is graphic design then to our everyday lives?
Well, I'm going to say it's the most important thing ever. How important is graphic design? Well, it can be incredibly important, and it can be completely irrelevant.
Okay.
I say that in the sense
Why is that?
Well, funny you should ask. No, I say that because at the end of the day, it's ultimately pixels on a screen or bits of ink on some kind of printed map. That's it. No one is going to die. No one's life depends on it. No, in that sense, you're not like a doctor or a surgeon or something like this. Mm-hmm. That's a huge importance there, especially in the current context of current events. So in one sense, it's kind of like, it's just logos, typefaces, colors, imagery, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, graphic design, out of all the different design disciplines, whether that's architecture, fashion, industrial design, like I said, there's lots of different areas. It's the most ubiquitous in the sense that it's so ubiquitous you don't even realize it's there. For example, this t-shirt made, that's graphic design because of the typography. This screen interface we're looking at on Zoom, or you're looking on, on your Windows,
like YouTube, or listening on Spotify,
all the icons on there, that's graphic design. You look at your phone every day, that's graphic design. That's UI design and UX design. You look at adverts, you look at TV, the little sequences that come in on Channel 4 or BBC 2, that's graphic design. You look at, you get into your car, you see the badge, that's graphic design. You turn on the engine, the screen comes up, you've got a digital screen, that's graphic design. It is literally everywhere. Typefaces, like I say, it's ridiculous. And that's why, like I say, in one way, it's very important. The road signs, they have to be clear. The typography in that is designed specifically. It was actually designed by a female designer called Margaret Calvert back in the 60s, and it hasn't changed since because it's that good, and it's actually seen as a design icon. But you kind of think, oh, it's just a typeface. Well, yeah, it is. But if you can see that as you're driving in the rain, going at whatever speed, and you're like, oh, I've got to turn off here. It's like, well, hang on, what is it? If I squint and I can't see, that can cause problems. So that in that sense, it's important. But in another sense, packaging on a Mars bar or something, it's just not to packaging. You throw it away. So again, it really does depend on the context, you see. So
that's interesting, that, because we look at branding and marketing and why are they doing this, and we look at it at the real basic level of, this is a serious font and this is a fun font, and why has this business chosen this? And there's a lot of conscious decisions and a lot of money being spent on making those decisions, and it's people like you who are told by a client that it has to convey this message or convey that message, I presume, and then you have to kind of create that around it. So, I mean, in terms of then the importance of it, people like yourself, a graphic designer, is there, I think I might know the answer to this already, is there a normal day in the life of a graphic designer, or even if you're a full-time employed graphic designer, is there such a thing of, you go into work, you start with this and then you go through that, or is it kind of varied?
It's generally varied, although it depends on the kind of project you're working on. If you're working on a big project, there can be this kind of, that there's different phases to a project, like anything, and you sort of know for that period of time, for those several weeks, it's going to be like this. If you're just jumping from project to project to project, which has kind of been this week for me, working on several different projects, one after completely different, totally different clients, then yeah, you're just jumping around doing that. You're spinning lots of plates and you're running around doing that. And in some ways, it's kind of nice to do that because it's keeping you on your toes. You're kind of having to think, you have to kind of almost split your head into two. It's like, right, I'm doing this here. I've got to do that in 1 hour, But then other times it can get really tedious and just, wear you out, because you've got to focus and concentrate really hard on some things. And other things, it's just nice just to get into the rhythm of doing something and then just kind of doing that there. But then after a while, that can kind of get a bit boring. So again, it's nice to have that variety. Some people, like I said earlier, some people thrive in the high, fast pace of things. Others don't. Everyone's different. So generally it's like that there. I mean, day in life, just this week I've been working on stuff for Philips, the electronic brand, doing social media stuff and digital stuff. I've also been working on pharmaceutical, for a big pharmaceutical, for medicines, and again they're doing web banners and stuff like this. And then next week I'm doing a campaign for Johnson & Johnson. So a big corporate one there, that'll be a lot of illustration and whatnot. So again, it's very varied.
And then all that experience you've had in the different kind of industries and people from all around the world you've worked with all goes in, doesn't it, at some point? And then you kind of putting that back out into your work. I got a really interesting question here from one of the students. I think it's more from the management side of things, like a business studies kind of question. How do your agencies find their clients? So how does Johnson & Johnson know to go to you? Did you find them? Did another organization find them? How does that process work?
There's lots of different ways. You have some clients that have just been with an agency for a very, very long time, and that's simply because the relationship has been built up. There's a lot of mutual trust, a lot of understanding, and they just really like how the agency responds and deals to it, and really understands their business model or their problems or, their culture, whatever that may be. As for this here, the company I'm currently contracted to, they're part of a bigger group. So they're clients that have come through other channels, and then they come back through into the design division. It's kind of like a design studio within a bigger company. And it's a bit of a strange setup. And these clients I just mentioned there have been clients for the bigger company for quite some time. So again, it's built from that. If you're coming like talking about new clients, that can just come from anywhere. It can come from a conversation, or just someone who's moved from one company to another, and they've said, look, I really love working with you for several years. This is someone at the client side. I'd like you to come in and pitch and meet these people. I think you could do some great work for them. Again, it's based on relationships. Other times, a company will put out a call out saying we'd like companies to come forward and pitch. That in itself is a bit of an issue, because sometimes companies just throw out an open invitation. They just want all this free work, and it causes a lot of problems because there's a lot of time and effort that's put into these pitches, and it's a bit wrong, really. You want to do their homework and find companies that are well suited to them. So yeah, there's lots of different ways, and sometimes you have to pitch, and they sort of say this is what we want, and you go forward with ideas. Say we could do your identity, say we could do your website, this we could do this, we could do that, and then they choose it from there. They narrow it down. So again, it's lots of different ways. But and building relationships is key.
Yeah. Nice one. And building relationships is key. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, because again, it comes from the students, because I talk about this a lot. It's a well-used line. It's all who you know. So relationships is key, you said there. What about as an individual? How important is networking for you? Is that something you've always been strong at? Have you always tried to not burn your bridges and always keep that business card in your back pocket?
Never.
How important is that networking and bridge? Non-burning,
because I'm a freelancer,
right?
So I need to build contacts, whether that's directly with companies or with recruiters. So it's that there. I mean, the end of the day, even if thousands and thousands, God knows how many thousands of people work in the design industry here in London alone, you'll get found out. This is before LinkedIn. You only had to go and be like, hang on, didn't they work? I knew someone over there, and you get found out. LinkedIn now, it's just like a couple of clicks and you'll get found out. So yeah, don't burn your bridges. It's about being professional. Even at times, and you can find yourself in whatever situation you want to scream, shout, it's a very frustrating situation. We've all been there in some shape or form. The best thing to do is just be professional and just take the higher ground and go, just walk away calmly, because for whatever reason, it's like that, even though you want to scream at the top of your lungs.
Because those people might speak to other people.
That's life in general. But don't burn your bridges. You'll know the people. It's like anything. It's like friends. You know the people who are worth knowing, because you can trust them. You know them, what they do, what they say, and this, that, the other.
Like me and you.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
No.
Yeah. But no, that is so important that you've done that. Has that always been a strong point for you, networking, or have you had to kind of learn from your mistakes from that? Because it's easy to say now, isn't it, where you got lots of experience under your belt, all these people, but thinking back to like 2002, 3, 4. Was that something you're like, yeah, I'm confident, I'm going to go in and show off my work?
I think it's very much down to like a personality thing, that some people are so confident. I could walk up to one, strike up a conversation, and before you know it, they're having beers, pre-COVID. You would, but and you're just like, how do you do it? And then others are just very shy in that. And again, you've just got to find your own comfort zone.
How important is social media in that then, in terms of comfort zones and things? Because you've got like Twitter accounts and you have LinkedIn. Is that right? You have LinkedIn?
I do.
You must do, yeah.
Although I, if I'm honest, I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn.
Fair enough. I won't tell you.
I'm just like, I'll use it if I have to. But it's useful to a point, but to put all your eggs in one basket with LinkedIn, I personally don't find that. I find personal relationships, people recommending me or me recommending someone else, like I'll get asked, even recruiters, I've had recruiters contact me and go, hey, do you know anyone who's free for this? Or do you know any designers who are good at this? And I'm like, the ones that I do are working. Well, I did know someone, but she's on maternity leave. So
Well, what about people new to the industry then, in terms of like 18-year-olds coming out, 21-year-olds coming out of university? How important is social media to them and give them the right impression on there? And our businesses that going, oh, we've got an agent, somebody's applied for a role here, quick, Google them.
Yeah.
How important is social media for people just getting started?
It's in this day and age, it's very important. You just got to remember, like, you can have your professional, like your LinkedIn and this here, but you just got to remember that once you put it out there, anything with the digital, once you put it out there, it's out there. You can't just turn it off at a flick of a switch. So you've got to sort of think, you make a comment. I mean, you only just have to see what happens with, a celebrity or an actor. So something they wrote years ago. It never
goes away, does it? It was a classic thing. Yeah, it was a classic thing during the Trump presidency, wasn't it? There's always a tweet, and it was contradictions to what he was actually doing. I mean, that's obviously on a massive, large scale. But you're right in that once it's there, that's it. You've chosen to tell the world that's how you feel at a particular time, and if an employer were to find that,
and I mean, also it could be that you might have wrote something 10 years ago. And since then, your views have completely changed, and that we all change and we all develop. And
you become more educated, more cultured. We travel, a lot of things happen.
I mean, we all change and grow and develop, and that. Obviously, depending on the context, which I think context is so important to so many things. You could be water off a duck's back, because it's like people go, oh, whatever. But other people are like, oh no, I don't know about that. But you can't second guess how people are going to think or feel about something you're writing or you've done now 10 years from now. But I think it's just it's huge common sense. Common sense. I love that. I'm going to have to start teaching that now. I think that's So in terms of that, then, as we go, a couple more questions as we kind of finish. I think let's do some advice then, because you've been there and done that, and you're still doing it, so you must be pretty hot at what you do. So for these people leaving college now, leaving university, obviously the world has changed a lot. If we'd had this conversation about 18 months ago, our answers and our questions would have been different. But what are you looking for in graphic designers now? For somebody in your shoes, but it's not 2001, it's 2021. And if you're hiring, or businesses hiring, what do you want to see from these youngsters with their fresh ideas? If you're talking about youngsters, like college graduate, uni graduate,
I say youngsters and it sounds derogatory. I don't mean that. I mean people younger than us.
The people we think we're still the same age mentally. Hey,
in here,
in here. You don't have to look at my grey hair. No, I would say at that stage, it's potential. We're not looking for a finely polished end product. I can use all this software at super high-end advanced levels. It's like you're 21, you're 22, we're not expecting that. If you were that good, you wouldn't be coming to work for us. You'd be setting up your own thing, and
that's
you'd be
right, a competitor. You'd be a competitor, not an employee.
It's I would say literally is potential. It is passion. Like that willingness to really push yourself, and you just want to learn, you want to know. Being a team player, that is very important. Don't think you can go solo on this. It'll take you so far, but the best practice, the gold standard, is being a team player, working with people, helping them, because they'll help you. It's karma, it will come around, I guarantee it. And it's just showing that willingness, that drive, and it's just like, what can I bring to the table? What is it I can offer to this business, to this company? What can I do that just really strengthens or enhances this studio, this agency, or even in-house? There's a lot of companies now who have a lot of in-house design. And years ago, it used to be a bit of a kind of like, oh, going in-house, and I'm talking years ago. Nowadays, it's like you see some of the in-house and it's like, oh, nice. Like BBC has its own creative agency, Channel 4 has it, and they're two of the best. Seriously, the work they pump out is just absolutely outstanding. I mean, you just, Channel 4, because the nature of Channel 4, they're very willing to push the boundaries.
They are. They always have been, haven't they?
That they have, and every time you see it, everyone's just like, nice. That's it. That's how you do it.
That's
and then
the
you
one,
look at, you look at another channel, and you're just like, seriously, look what they're doing. Learn. Come on.
Yeah.
So potential, willingness to learn, passion. You're gonna have to. It's hard work. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's bloody hard work, and you're going to do some hours because it's a deadline business. The creative industries are all deadline driven. You need to get your time management spot on because you won't last long. I guarantee it.
You are making my lessons so easy right now, because you haven't even seen the slide that I start most of my lessons with, and it says skills, and it's got willingness to learn, time management, teamwork, problem solving, communication, all these things on that you're talking about. I'm like, maybe you did see? Did I show it to him and I just don't remember? So thank you for making that easy. Was there anything else you was going to add to that? That was a heck of a list you had there.
No, that's just the general stuff. Everything else, like I'd say to people, like, if you're worrying about the software changes constantly. It constantly changes. Okay, it's always going to be like that. You're never going to learn it all. You're never going to be, it'd just be ridiculous. You can't do it. It's not, that will come in time. You can't be expected to learn 10 different softwares to expert level unless you don't sleep.
Well, speaking of not sleeping, I mean, you said about not sugarcoating it there, and I know we've had conversations where I've said, oh, I'll chat to you tonight or something, you're free at 9, and you go, no, I'm working. So I mean, what are some of the ridiculous hours you've worked over the years? You said it was hard work. Define hard work. I mean, what's some of the extreme cases where you've really been working?
I've ever done. I've done 28 hours straight to hit a deadline. I worked 28 hours straight. Went into work. This was about nearly 10 years ago. I couldn't do it now. I'm just like, but I went into work early. Been working at this firm for quite some time. It was a big pitch, and I was brought in to help out with the presentation side of things and doing this, that, the other. But I ended up doing a lot more. And with that came in, and it's with this big digital agency. And literally came in at 7:30, starting work at 7:30 in the morning, all the way into East London. And I worked all the way through to like 7:30, and then worked all through the night. I thought, right, I'm going to get home about 2 tonight. And everything just kept going wrong. And I was like, no, I'm not letting this go because the pitch is tomorrow. This is going to work. It's going to work. I'd had so much sugar. My knees were like this.
I don't know how you could even read your screen or anything at that point. Be bouncing around.
Everything started to blur and that. But I don't know if that was like the 3 or 4 Red Bulls I'd had in this period. And then I went through and looked, and what it is, I finished at about 10:30 the next morning. Wow. Something like that. And then they literally just got in, and people had left at 1 in the morning. And they came back in at 5:30. They literally got a couple of hours sleep. And they're looking, they went, have you been home? And they went, didn't you change clothes? And I'm like, no. And I've done that, and that was 28 hours. That was really insane. But I want to just point out that is not normal in the least.
Yeah, that does say, well, I did say extreme, didn't I?
Yeah, circumstances. And the head, the director of it was just like, I want you to put down on your timesheets 4 days work for that. I was like, damn it.
Yeah. So, have a rest.
He was like in that period, I charged him for 4 days work because of going through the night.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is very crazy. So I don't want to scare people off.
No.
There was just there were certain circumstances around that.
Be ready to work hard, I think, is an understatement for quite a few jobs nowadays, but especially yours. Yeah,
it's a deadline business. That's part and parcel of the job. And also, just as a fair warning, it's rare you get overtime.
You just expected to do the
work. It's bloody hard. But then I'm working at because I work in London, I'm working at the big top agencies and studios, and it's like Premier League standard, so there's an
if you want to work for them, that's what you do, and you got that expectation of the experience.
But also, I'd also say, if you don't feel comfortable with that, say the people will ask you. They will not be. It's not like Goldman Sachs or something like that. That's there. But I was just giving you an absolute extreme that I have.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. It's interesting to know how these industries work, and that things like that can happen when you've got to meet client needs. There's no other way around it, because clients pay your bills. We've also I know I can't remember when it was, because time has gone very funky. With regards to portfolios, I remember, did you lose your portfolio like you left an art folder on a bus, like back in the day here? But you left a digital portfolio on a bus. But did you have some issues with your portfolio a few years back? Did it disappear, or did you have to redo it?
Data corruption, and it stayed on my computer, and it spread to all my backups, and I had to dump. But I couldn't.
Yeah,
because I couldn't risk trying to. Lots of files were just lost. I'm still there's still stuff. I'm still
how important is a portfolio? I mean, again, to people just leaving and starting their careers, how important is a portfolio? Should they be working on that like in their own time and getting loads of things ready and just make it, and if it's their passion, they probably will anyway, because you'll enjoy doing it. So how important is a portfolio nowadays compared to, say, when you would have started?
It's everything.
Okay.
It's what gets you your job. It's more important than a CV.
Right.
In design, it is everything. It's not the absolute 100% of it. It's a key part of it, because, put it this way, if you apply to a job and you send samples, maybe send a web link or a PDF with samples of your work, if they see something in there, they think, right, you could possibly do this job. That's why they're asking you to an interview. They want to see how you respond. They want to ask more questions about it, like how you responded to this brief. How did you respond to this problem? What is your approach? It's not like the end result. They can see the end result. They want to see how you got from A to B. They want to know your thinking. They want to know how your attitude, your approach to things. After that, it's personality, essentially. They want to know, can you get on? You could be the best designer in the world. You could be slick as anything. I can do this, that, the other. But at the end of the day, if you're a bit of an arsehole, you're not going to get on with the team. They're going to be like, this could be problematic. So, it's part and parcel. But the portfolio is by far I've never met a designer who likes doing their portfolio. They're so self-conscious, so self-aware. It's like, is it good enough? No, if I want to rip it up, throw it. Everyone has done it. Everyone hates it. They don't go, oh, portfolio. No, they're just like, do I have
even though it might actually be the best thing that the employer has ever seen in their life, you still might be thinking, you know what, I wish I'd changed that. I wish I'd done that differently.
You are your worst own critic. You're just like, oh, is that colour the right tone, or should have used that other typeface? Oh, I should have done that different angle and cropped to the image like this.
Well, obviously,
whatever story, it's a curse almost. That's how it often feels. So
Well, whatever questions you're asking yourself, whatever you're doing, you're obviously doing something right, because you're still, being a major player down there. So nice one on that. So, I mean, but the advice you've given here on this little chat we're having here today is it's so amazing to hear, from your industry that I know very little about. I might have even come across your work and not known you've done it. And you said the importance of graphic design when it comes to everything we use and things like that, which is stunning. I really appreciate you giving that advice to the people who are getting started, because there's a lot of them, and it's tricky times, isn't it? But there's never any kind of good news at the moment.
I don't envy students at the moment. I mean, one thing I will call for the students coming out from last year and this year, and given the circumstances and the uncertainty, given what's going on.
Please do,
But I've got to say this, that the industry, how it's been responding, I've noticed more of an uptick, like people offering like portfolio reviews and trying to do more internships so people can gain the experience, because that's always been a bit of a problem within this line of work, is that you're in a catch-22. You want to apply for a junior position, but they'll say 1 year's experience, but I can't get an experience, so you have to go and do work experience and do placements. But some places will pay, or at least pay your travel and that, but if you're in Birmingham and you want to go and work at this agency in London. Have you got any family or friends there? No. Okay. Do you have a wealthy family that can pay for you to rent there and do whatever? Very few people are not in that position. They're not that fortunate. So it's a very difficult thing. And people are aware of that. But also the industry is just ask people, just approach them, just be honest. Just say, hi, I really like your stuff. I was wondering if I could pop by and just show you my portfolio. I just want to get her advice. That's what I done. And I got advice, and it was, I just went in and said, look, honest advice. Don't hold back. Don't, and, this one guy just went through and says, I like this. Not so. I would recommend you try this. Think of it like this. And he was giving it, and I was just scribbling away, trying to do that. But yeah, and that was incredibly helpful. And just remember that you could ask 20 people, and then it could be one person says yes. Don't get disheartened. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Look at it that way.
Yeah, and going into that, then I'm going to ask you a question here which I haven't prepped you for, and maybe you've already answered it in that, but a question I ask everyone is, if you were 17 or 18 again, the same age as most of my students, and you wish somebody had given you some advice that you could have followed then and took as like your mantra, that maybe you wouldn't have had to learn yourself 10 years later, what would that advice have been?
I don't know, bet on Leicester winning the Premiership like 4 or 5 years ago.
This isn't Back to the Future. This isn't a British version of Back to the Future.
No,
can't use an almanac.
Yeah, no, I would say the advice that I had is just hindsight is always 20/20.
It is, isn't it? And it is a tricky one, and maybe it's advice that somebody did actually give you when you actually took. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't put it this way. I don't feel I've made any kind of like, oh bugger, I knew I should.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always little regret. That's life.
Yeah.
I always kind of think, should I have done more digital based? Because I'm not really a full digital designer. I do bits of digital and that. Yeah. Okay. I like doing print. I like doing tactical, things that are, environmental, so like exhibitions or wayfinding, that kind of thing. I like print. I like to touch things that are tactile. And I always wonder if I should have gone more into digital, but to be honest, I've never really enjoyed it that much. I don't mind doing bits, and I keep up with it. I try it so I understand it, but I'm just not like, I want to throw everything in to that. I just like to, I know what I'm good at, I know what I like, and I know what I enjoy. But that's taken God knows how many years to really, for me to really figure that out. I kind of had an idea, and it stayed true. So
that circles back nicely to what you were saying towards the start of this, Ben, in terms of advice then for people getting started, and you're given so much, it's stunning. In terms of there are lots of things, there are lots of elements to the industry, there are lots of parts and places and aspects to it. So try them and find your, not so much your niche, but certainly the ones you prefer. And if you can work at it, even better. So that's great. I mean, what's next for you, Nathan? Are you going to carry on freelancing, or where'd you go next?
My contract is, I'm kind of lined up to the end of April. It was meant to be around about now. It's meant to be fishing, but it's been extended. So I don't know. It changes. So it literally in a day it can change several times. I ended up working this afternoon, but this was going to be my day off.
Okay. Flexibility is key.
Actually, today was meant to be my first full day off since November.
Whoa!
So I've worked every day.
That's ridiculous.
So this is it. Like I said, you've got to put the hours in and that. But the thing is that I enjoy my work. I do. I can honestly say, no, I do enjoy it. There's times when I'm just literally grinding my teeth going, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Generally,
I think we all have those moments.
Yeah, it's normal. But I still, really like it. Still really enjoy it.
Brilliant. And how lucky then are we then to do jobs that we both enjoy after all these years? Since what, the 90s and the zeros and the 10s. Oh my gosh, but we're still here. Yeah, we're still in our 40s now doing jobs we enjoy, and it's Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. You know, really enjoyed it myself. And two, you know, for the students watching, anybody listening, the advice is so clear and so useful. So please take it on board, because Dean's been there, he's done it, and he's still doing it. Dean, cheers. Thank you very much. Stay on the line. We'll have a quick chat when I pause this. And thanks very much. And we'll catch you again here on Talking Business. Thank you. See you later, Dean. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Dean, thank you so much for taking the time to chat there. Some amazing, invaluable advice for budding graphic designers and people entering the industry and other industries as well, where some of those skills can be applied. And how bizarre it was to have a professional interview with one of your old schoolmates there and one of your friends. But hey, good fun. Dean, thank you. Really appreciate it. And to everybody else listening and watching, you can find us on all the social medias. If you have a look for Pardo's Business or Mr. Pardo's Business, you'll find me on there. Please do say hi, like, share, subscribe the videos and the podcasts, and leave reviews. And I look forward to seeing you again soon on another episode of Talking Business. Thank you. Bye-bye.